What is up, takers? This is Ty's Take Today, where we focus on entertainment, lifestyle, opinionated topics, and of course, stories that impact you and your community daily. Joining me today is my newest best friend, JoJo Dries from On the Wings of Angels. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ty. Thanks for having me here. I'm so excited to be on this, excited to have this conversation with you. Appreciate the honor of being on here.
Absolutely. As I said, we like to dive into those stories sometimes that are swept under the rug, or people tend to steer away from. So I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart with everything that you and your organization are doing. And I'm really looking forward to spreading the awareness about domestic violence and trauma and how this impacts so many people here all across the world, and of course right in our own backyards and communities. So that being said, just to give you guys a little pinpoints about JoJo, you are a woman of many talents, from being the founder and director to being a voice in the community, an advocate, a keynote speaker. Can you tell us a little bit more about your life and how those experiences and your traumas have played a vital role? And once again, I do just want to say thank you so much for being brave and being vulnerable and having that conversation with us today as well.
Absolutely. Yes. It gets easier to tell the story of my childhood and my trauma as the years go by. But nevertheless, you'll still find me telling my story and sort of breaking down. For a long time, I just wanted to get out, and I just was in this, like, they call it fight or flight mode. And so that fight in me was just like, I'm going to tell everyone everything. And then I realized, like, because people would say, it's brave of you. It's brave of you to tell your story. I never thought I was brave. And then I realized, kind of when that fire died down, that it's a brave thing for survivors to tell their story. And so from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate the platform, the safety, in something like this, in a podcast. Survivors look for safe spots. And so I appreciate that, and that people can find you and hear about these topics. But my childhood and sort of what brought us here today is the first time I remember being physically abused by my dad was at age 9. So through a lot of therapy and through a lot of healing of my own self, I recall that first time being at age 9. Now, I was physically, sexually, emotionally, verbally abused, mentally. And so when you think about all of the different types of abuse, something I do want to start out by saying is, although my story encompasses all the types of abuse, from my paternal father, people say, well, mine wasn't so bad. My mental abuse wasn't as bad as your physical abuse, or my physical abuse, wasn't as bad as your emotional abuse. And I just wanted to start out by saying right off the bat that any type of abuse is unacceptable. And the first time they abuse you is one time too much. So we grew up in a household that was super controlled, very patriarchal, and very much focused on misogyny. So it was this whole environment that men were better than women. Women were second-class citizens. And because of that, the men had control over the women. And so every choice I made was controlled. Every phone call I had as I got older was controlled. And if I didn't submit to the authority of my dad or my older brother, well, then I would get beat up. And then, mind you, they would intersperse spirituality in there. So they were very far, like fundamentalist. So they called it sort of like a fundamentalist version of Christianity. Now, I don't believe in the bottom of my heart that was any example of what Christianity is supposed to look like. But for us, we had, two things going against us. It was my dad truly believing that men were better than women. And then add to that the fundamentalist side of religion. So throughout the years, we were abused. There was a lot of quote unquote exorcisms. So for example, if I disagreed with my dad or my brother, they would lock me in a room, starve me. I would not be able to eat or drink until the demon was exorcised out of me. And so often there were scripts that I had to say, or, some type of honor that I had to give my dad or brother. If that didn't work, then the beatings would start. My hair was pulled more than, several times over the years. dragged across the floor. And then many abuse survivors don't know when they're being abused sexually because the control limits their understanding of anatomy. So, for example, for me, I didn't know what it looked, what sex really was. And so when I was being sexually abused, I thought that was a form of love being expressed towards me in those situations. And so that started in my like preteen era, so 11, 12, and that continued through the years into my early 20s. And the physical abuse finally stopped when I left. So I was physically abused till I was 29 when I finally left. So that's kind of where this all started. And through those years, I always knew it was wrong. And I think internally, a lot of us know when we are in the moment that this isn't okay. And all those years I said, every time I would be abused, it would be like, I'm going to get out someday and I'm going to help others get out themselves as well.
Absolutely. Thank you once again. Just, I know we talked before the cameras were rolling, but I just want to say thank you so much for being so open and sharing your story and your journey. And, this is something that I haven't really shared publicly so much as well, but being a domestic violence survivor, I think that it's so important that, we allow these things to happen. And like you said, we tell ourselves, oh, this is going to be the last time, or my partner, this person, or the attacker is going to change. They're going to be better. They're going to become a better person. When I tell you, I have so many stories that I've been through over the period of my life with.
And you're a man, Ty, and that's a lot of people refuse to accept the fact that this happens no matter your gender, and it's beautiful that you're sharing that. So I want to give you a lot of credit because that isn't easy to share.
Yes. I just, I think it's so easy or to be under this like blind side, like, oh, I'm in love, or, like you have so much hope for a positive outcome. But like I said, from physical attacks and how you mentioned as well, there's so many different levels and streams of this. It's not just sexual abuse. It's not just physical abuse. It's emotional abuse. What has this journey been like for you now that you aren't experiencing those things, and you're currently using your platform to raise awareness? And ultimately, how did the birth of On the Wings of Angels begin? And you guys tell us a little bit more about the nonprofit and all of the amazing things that you all are doing in the community.
I appreciate that. And I just want to take truly a moment to say it's very powerful that you would express that, and what your experience was. And, maybe throughout this, if you feel comfortable sharing any of your details, I'd be honored, to be a safe space for you. But I do think that, what people don't understand is abuse happens, again, across societal, economics, across genders, across, sexual orientations. It doesn't matter. Like, this is a very glaring problem in our society. It's an epidemic. And the sort of the patriarchal, sort of viewpoint, or that type of world philosophy affects men and women and across all genders. Whatever your gender might be, it affects us all in a negative way. And so I think the more of us that talk about it, the more we get the word out that it's not okay behavior, the better our world becomes. On the Wings of Angels was birthed in a very interesting way. So we, again, throughout the years, I said one day I'll stop this happening to myself, and in doing so, I will tell everyone what happened. So it started by first putting my voice out there. So I left 12 years ago. I was 29. And, whatever that last time was that I said never again. So then I left. I was couch surfing, and I just started telling everyone and anyone that would listen. And some might say it was inappropriate, but I just told the whole world, this is what's happening. We had, Facebook. I had Facebook back then, so I was talking about it on Facebook. I would tell our friends, our family. And then there was a very clear delineation of people that would trust me and believe the words that I was saying, and then people that weren't. And for me, escaping, I thought, oh my God, everyone's going to believe me. I'm going to have this, bunch of people around me saying, you got this. And I didn't ultimately. There were definitely the core group, and some of them are definitely still around, that believed me. But when it happened, it was sort of a shock that many people sided still with my dad. Well, it wasn't that bad. Well, it couldn't have been that bad. Well, we were at your house, but abusers have a very, have like almost like this dual personality of what they show the world and what they show, their victims. And so when that happened, this light began to like go inside of me, like, oh my gosh, survivors need support. And when we get out, like, I didn't know how to lease a car. I didn't know how to go get an apartment. I was 29. Like, so I was like, we need to somehow get these resources out for them and a support system so that when men or women get out of this abuse, we now have something to plug them into. And so that dream was birthed then over the years. I've just continued to talk about this. And about a year and a half ago, there was a series of 6 women that came to me from high level, like wealthy families, like families that had these beautiful homes and beautiful jobs. And it was 6 different women from 6 different parts of my life that all needed my help getting out of their abusive relationships. And so I came home after one of those lunch meetings, and I talked to my husband, and I talked to one of my mentors, Kate, and I told them both, I was like, there's a reason there's 6 people that came to me in a space of like a month. And so they both said exactly the same thing in 2 different conversations. You have to start a nonprofit. There's never going to be enough resources. Obviously, there's many nonprofits that support, sexual abuse survivors, domestic, abuse survivors, but this is clearly your passion. So go do it. So we got approved as a 501c3 in December of 2022. And then we launched in March of 2023 during Women's Empowerment Month. And my husband and I invested in the website. We paid, out of our own pocket to really create different, explanations of what we were doing on the website and have a robust site. And so it was birthed, I would say, during my abuse, years of abuse, because I knew I wanted to help people. And then just that dream continued to grow. And then we just made it a reality, because clearly there will never be enough services, because 1 in every 4 women has experienced some type of domestic abuse, and 1 in every 7 men has also experienced some type of domestic abuse.
And I'm so glad that you shared that statistic, because that statistic, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, that equates to nearly 20 people per minute. And the statistic alone just speaks for, and that's for, those that have been reported, that's not even to begin counting and to put a statistic towards the amount of people that it's still occurring, or that are afraid or living in fear that we don't get every single report.
Yeah, correct.
And for you, what I know it's a loaded question, but what guidance or advice would you give? Because clearly, by sharing your story, we've seen that true happiness and fulfillment is a destination that can be reached. But how, in particular, for anybody that may be watching this on our YouTube, on any of our social media platforms, if there is somebody out there that needs these resources, that needs this help, what advice would you give, and how can they contact you guys directly to begin that process? I know your website has a form of intake survey. So can you tell us a little bit more about that survey? And then once that survey is completed, for those that may be needing that assistance, once they do complete that survey, what are the next steps, and how can they get connected with you guys?
Ty, that's a great question, and I'm going to answer it. I'm going to take it down 2 different paths. So the first path is an appeal to our community that we need to be looking out better. Sorry, I get emotional when I say this, but we need to look out better for each other. and I say this in every interview and every opportunity I have, that many people looked at our family like the ideal family. But then when I left, many people said there was something weird about your family. We knew something was off. You know, we had bad vibes at certain times, or whatever they said, they had an inkling that something was off. And many people have asked me, you know, even for forgiveness, that they did nothing once they felt those things. And so the first path I want to take it down is for the folks that are not being abused or non-survivors. Please look out for each other. If you see something wrong that you think could be off, you know, in a family member, a friend, a sister, a niece, you know, whoever it might be, your kids, you know, friends at school and their families, please pay attention to that and do your best to find resources like us to plug them into. The second path I would say is, and I'm just going to be super blunt because I'm a very empathetic person for survivors, but I think the bluntness comes in is that it has to be their time. So for example, I was 29 when I left, and I could have left. I mean, we live in the US, like I could have left at 18, right? Like I could have, you know, emancipated myself, whatever it could have been. But I wasn't totally ready, clearly, until I was 29. And then it was just basically like I was going to do whatever it took. I was going to sleep on a shelter floor. I was going to go couch surfing on friends. You know, I couldn't take anything with me. Literally took the clothes out, you know, on my back and, you know, a bag. Much of my clothes stayed back at home for my sister. I couldn't take, you know, bedding, my jewelry, my shoes, like pretty much all of it I had to reinvest in. And I didn't know that people were going to be willing to step up. So like when I left and I did get an apartment, it got furnished completely by a mentor of mine. You know, I didn't know that that was going to happen. I didn't even ask them. She volunteered it. So make sure you're ready. And for me, I was trying to date this guy, and, you know, maybe we'll talk a little bit about my love story, but because that has like a whole amazing part of this freedom. But I was dating this other guy and my dad didn't like it. So long story short, one of the times he was over, my dad took my hair, you know, threw me to the ground, dragged me across his bedroom, and almost threw me down the stairs. And that was my aha moment of never again. So that next morning I woke up and started couch surfing. So every survivor is going to have that aha moment when you're ready. When you are ready, know that there are these resources. So for example, this one woman that we're working with right now, we're getting her an attorney. We're getting her mental health help for her herself and her 7-year-old male child. We're getting, you know, resources together for, you know, whether it's clothes or whatnot. And then we're calling the shelters on her behalf. So something that a lot of women don't like to do, because it's very disheartening, is to call all our local shelters and then call again the next day, because you have to keep calling to see if they have any beds open. Because unfortunately, this is such an epidemic that, like, I could call 50 shelters and they could all be full. So one of the services organizations like us offer is we'll take that burden off of you. We'll make those phone calls. And then if we find one that has an opening, we'll make that introduction so you can apply. So I think the advice is, you know, when will it end? Like you had mentioned, right? These folks that are abusers tend to be cut out of the same cloth. They tend to be crafted the same way, and it's not going to end. They're not going to change. And you've been, you know, and it's hard to tell people this because people had to tell me this, but you've been mentally trained that they are going to change because they have that control over you. So they have convinced you over and over again. They'll come back crying. They'll come back emotional. They'll come back, you know, with gifts and whatever it might be. But just know that it's not going to change. And I think the advice is to both. The advice is to our community, and the advice is to the survivors as well.
Absolutely. And a little bit more about my experience, even. I'm the type of person that loves to see the positivity in every person, every situation. I was dating somebody, and my family took them in as their own. He lived with my mom and my grandma and I, and everything started off great. It was like that puppy dog stage, and then from there were just signs that I overlooked, and I knew that like these things were things that shouldn't have been happening, but I allowed them to because I had that mindset like, oh, it gets better. It's
Yeah.
gonna get worse before it
Yeah.
gets better.
Yeah.
And luckily, I'm still here today to share that story.
Yeah.
But it went from everything being okay to like, I even remember taking the bus to downtown Detroit to go to work, and at that time, it was definitely like a control issue as well because like we had to work at the same restaurant together.
Yep.
Like if
Yep.
where I go, he went.
Yeah.
There was no time to just be with ourselves. And I remember being late to work and multiple times, you know, I had to hop on the bus, take two buses to get to work, and then come into work. And you know, I'm working at a restaurant as a host, and they're like, Tyler, why do you have sunglasses on? You don't generally wear sunglasses. And
Mhm.
I remember one of my managers taking me into like pulling me aside, and she's like, I know what's going on. I know
Mhm.
this is toxic. This shouldn't be happening to you. And
Mhm.
I think one of the my aha moments, if you will, is I remember her sitting there with me crying, telling her everything that's going on, and she was applying makeup on my face to hide my
Mm.
my all the scars. Like my face did not look how it should. And
Mhm.
I that
Mhm.
that was a big moment for me where I was like, okay, Tyler, you have to get it together. Not to mention cops being called on us walking down the street in a downtown city because we're fighting or we're raising our voices at each other.
Yeah.
And then even to like going to court and having my grandma sit in the courtroom with me as I try to plead to the judge that this person is going to change, this
Yeah.
person is going to do better, this
Yeah.
person, we're going to enroll them in school and help them get their GED and their diploma.
Yeah.
And I even like you had mentioned, you know, being homeless, or I
Yeah.
at one point chose to cut off my mom, I
Yeah.
cut off my grandma, and
Mhm.
literally packed a book bag or two book bags and was sleeping at hotels, motels, uh,
Mhm.
sleeping at people's houses on the couches in the community because to their eyes, they see Tyler as this vibrant,
Yeah.
energetic,
Yeah.
go-getter, passionate
Yeah.
person. So
Yeah.
they don't know. They just thought Tyler was homeless, but
Yeah.
Tyler was
Yeah.
in a sense choosing to be homeless because my love at that point in my life was so strong for somebody that didn't respect, didn't care, didn't love me. And
Mhm.
I remember even going to the hospital, and you know, there was just so many red flags.
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful to, you know, that I am still here today, that I didn't take my own life.
Me too. I'm grateful that you're still here today, and I'm grateful that you're sharing your story. I think it's super important that we talk about this, that we dialogue about it, that we tell people, how we were there and now we're here, and then they can see that you survived, you're thriving. So what was your kind of your end all? Like, how did you end it? And are you still, if you don't mind my asking, and are you still, does he ever come back around?
Absolutely 170,000% no. Um,
Good, good.
I'm sure he may be, or somebody may be relaying these videos and
Good,
content that I produce on our platform. But no communication. I
good.
do not want any communication. I am very much happy with my current partner, and
Yeah,
like you said, thriving and just going after my dreams. So I thank you for allowing me to be open and share a little bit of my journey.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
I mean, you and I are both proof that you can get out. You can live a life filled with prosperity and happiness, and you know, go after living, just being your authentic self.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think that's one of my favorite things when we are serving these women or men is watching that, caterpillar become a butterfly, is watching them grow. There's this one woman, and she's like, JoJo, I'm a vet tech. Like, that's what I did. And then I let him, take over. And now, I don't have a job, and she was walking to her job or whatever. And so we helped her get on her way to then become a vet tech, like back to where her roots were. And I think at the end of the day, it is that we are created for a purpose. We're here for a purpose. And like my purpose, despite the fact that I hate that I was abused, like I love it in the sense that I wouldn't be helping others and fulfilling my purpose in life if that didn't happen to me. So there's many people that were abused and don't have the strength or the wherewithal or the connections, right? So like my family was super well connected. I mean, we were very wealthy. We were very well connected in the ethnic community, as well as the religious community, as well as the community of business. And so I got out and I honestly used all those connections to now help others. And I think that we're created in that way to then fulfill our purpose and to be able to be that conduit for a survivor, to be like, look at, this is what you are meant for. And this situation you're in, you're not fulfilling your full potential. And look at, you found a new partner, you found, this career and like all of it. And I think something important to address too is that the partners of survivors are super important as well. We just did that gala and, the fundraising gala, and I talked about Paul, my partner, because at the end of the day, I wouldn't be as healed as I am in this moment if it wasn't for the healing journey, he both walked with me through as well as allowed me to go through, right? Like he gave me my space, like you said, he said, you got to do you. And so I have, there were times I was seeing a therapist 2-3 times a week, for my healing journey. And so I think it's important to find a partner when you're a survivor that understands that you can feel safe with in sharing those things with, because then it helps your healing journey as well, get to where it should be.
Absolutely. And speaking of the gala that was just that just happens in April, can you tell us a little bit more about what that event was like? I know we're gonna have another one next year, right?
Yes, and I hope you're gonna come. We met right before that, but I really hope you'll be there. So basically what happened was we started because I was like, we got to help other people. So, we started this last year and everyone's jumped in, rallied around the nonprofit, really bought into the vision. And I looked around and I said, people love a party. Like people love to party. They love to dance. They love to eat good food. And so I asked around and I said, if we did a fundraiser, basically to do a huge splash in the community to then raise enough funds, basically as a foundation to help, because we get donations and we get donations from people that don't even know us or from my media appearances or things like that. But I was like, if we can really get so many people in a room together, we can help get the word out about what we're really doing here. So one of our board members, connected us with Carolyn Clifford because they're good friends. And Carolyn has a beautiful, story of her own and how she got out and survived, domestic violence. And that was epic. So we got that. Then I'm friends with a former Miss USA contestant from Utah. And I asked her, and she's a huge part of the LGBT community. She was the first openly bisexual woman to compete in Miss USA. So I wanted that voice, to show people that, that it crosses all spectrums. And we wanted to be super inclusive, in that realm. And then Taryn Asher interviewed me in August of last year, which is really how On the Wings got a lot of wings, because her interview with me really brought a lot of eyes to what we were doing. And I asked her to MC. And so the gala there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Carolyn shared her story, amazing survivor story, and said some of her story that had never been on any platform publicly. So we felt very honored that she shared that. I would say, just the highlight of the night was watching people just go from, okay, what are we really doing here? And let's get some good wine and food to, oh my gosh, how can I help? How can I help this cause? And how can I be a better a part of this community by helping survivors. So then Rachel, the Miss USA contestant, Rachel Slauson, spoke about her and her own survivor story and how she had attempted suicide. So we brought in the whole mental health piece of abuse and how it makes you question yourself, tears your self-confidence down. So that was a huge part where people were just, because if you haven't experienced that type of abuse, like, yeah, sure, we all have our self-confidence issues, but like when you're just torn down to like nothing because your abuser says you'll never succeed without me, you're going to die out there without me, you need me to be part of this world, all of that, you don't understand the mental health struggles that survivors experience. So she brought that whole aspect, which was amazing. And then Taryn just absolutely crushed as MC. She just, she has a real heart and passion. And I think one of the things that really touched me was when she said from the stage that, pretty much every dollar that we are donated goes directly into the hands of a survivor in their families. So I don't get paid. Our team doesn't get paid. This is all volunteer. This is because we have a passion to give back. And certainly, as the years go by, things will change and, we can't always sustain, just that. But either way, the minimal expense that we'll incur is going to be so small compared to so many nonprofits. So the genuine heart that we have to help the community. And so then we had the band. The Louie Lee show was unbelievable. Louie Lee is a good friend of ours, a product of sort of this incredible story himself. And so he told some of his story. His band was on point. And that was amazing. We gave some great awards out to community members that have really helped us thrive. And next year, our plan is to have some of the survivors that we've served, come out and talk about their own story and sort of their journey over the 12 months between now and then. So yeah, it was a highly successful event. We raised a lot of money. A lot of people were like, well, you'll be lucky to break even. And we raised a lot of money. We raised almost $20,000 net out of the gala. And that was net, like that's post expense and post everything else. So that's, every dollar goes to a survivor and you can't beat that,
Absolutely. And you even pointed out that it's this is something that affects people of all races, religions, creeds, it's genders, multiple different communities, like you said, the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
And it's so great in the work that you guys are doing. And I definitely will make it a point to be in attendance for next year's event.
Thank you.
And I want to know more about really how can people get involved. I know we talked a little bit about donating, but are there any volunteer options or even honestly, a lot of people everybody falls on
Yes.
tough times. So like for me, it's like even just the simple repost or the simple tweet or share, showing this video to somebody that may need to hear this advice can go a long way. That's one. And for me, it's always if I share my story or utilize my platform for the good of everyone, regardless if that's one life saved that hears my story, then that's far more than I would ever ask for.
1,000%. And I think people don't understand the full effect of that. So for example, like a simple example, of sharing, I have a friend who does like restoration in homes and decks and like things like that and paint. And he's super trustworthy, says what he's going to do, does what he says he's going to do. So I took my friends list on Facebook and I asked them, I invited them all to his Facebook page. Right. So then a longtime friend of mine messages me the other day and was like, hey, you invited me to this page the other day. I lost it. I can't find it, but I really need my deck done for the summer. Can you help me out? Because every other contractor that we've used has over the years, basically has failed us. And so, because that industry, it's hard to trust anyone. And so then we connected these two. And now this gentleman, my friend, is helping my other friend with his deck. And so I think that the reshare, the inviting people to like the On the Wings of Angels Instagram or Facebook page, the posting in community message boards. So I've had people that have screenshot community message boards post and said, hey, look, we mentioned you in this comment because we think you could help this individual who's needing, to be served. So yes, the likes, the comments, the shares, definitely 100%. I will tell you, like I texted you, the last podcast I did, we are now helping a woman, serving this woman who whose aunt heard us on the last podcast, happened to click on the podcast, loved it, and then the niece is escaping, just escaped her, fled her abuser. The aunt's talking to her, could not believe it, didn't know that this was happening to her niece, says, hey, listen, I just heard this podcast. Let me connect you. So then we got connected, and and now we're helping her. So I think just the shares, the likes, the comments, super important. And then in addition to that, so when you say volunteer opportunities, something that I've realized is we're not yet in a spot where we're like needing physical volunteers, but what we really need are volunteers that are willing to call community vendors. So like some of these women need a car. And I know there's dealerships out there that will be willing to sell a car to a nonprofit at a lot less money, even in this tight environment of trying to find a vehicle. And we don't need the best car. We just need a safe car for our survivors. Other vendors, clothes vendors, walk into your local Meijer. Local Meijer will give you like $150 to $200 gift certificate for a nonprofit, so walk in and then mail that to us, and then other types of volunteers, intake folks. So if you're listening to this and you're a therapist or you're a facilitator of some kind where you're used to handling crisis center calls, give us a call. Maybe you can help us as we get these surveys in of women that need our help. And any other type of service that you think these women would need, get the word out, let people know that we exist. And then, yes, of course, the donations, as we say, the donations go right into the hands of survivors. And so we did this little chart, and I'll send it to you if you wanted to post it on your story or anything. But I did a little chart of like, $5 if you send us goes here, $25 goes here, $100 goes here. And so like some people think if I give $5, it's not going to go anywhere, but it is. Like every dollar counts. So I think that's important to share as well.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely be sure to send that over to us after today's interview. I'd love to share that. And I think, for visual learners or people that prefer to digest information visually, that would be a great, just to be able to show that like, dollars are going towards an actual, because there are a lot of people out there who like to scam or, have the best in mind. So being able to clearly identify that these dollars are actually going towards helping these survivors, I feel like that is very important.
Well, there's a high percentage when you say that about scamming, there's a high percentage of nonprofits that open and shut their doors very quickly. It's like within 2 to 3 years, they'll shut their doors, and it's like 70-80% or something like that. And the reason is A, the founder did it for themselves. B, they aren't, it isn't a true, genuine like service to the community, and they are scamming people. And or C, they obviously didn't get the funding, that they initially hoped that they would get. But we just keep getting the word out, because at the end of the day, and we have several local nonprofits that we partner with, right? So like we partner with Eye Care of Michigan. Eye Care of Michigan helps those in need, one-time help, up to X amount. And so there's times when we're helping X amount, but then we need a partner to then donate, and help for the rest of that bill. And we can call them. There's organizations like Haven and Lighthouse and, Community Housing Centers of Michigan and other places that we're partnering with, Grace Centers of Hope, where we can then refer our folks to them and they can refer their folks to us. So I think the more the word gets out, the more folks we can help.
Absolutely. And I know we talked about how these circumstances affect people of all walks of life. Just to be clear, Does On the Wings of Angels have a particular group? Do you all solely focus predominantly on women, or are you open to
Yes, that's a
help?
great question. So, so when I started, looking around, I feel like our world is filled with very much judgment. And, whether they judge your, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, religious orientation, whatever it might be. And part of the judgment turns into abuse. So because you don't follow my 10 steps, you're going to do whatever. You're going to go to hell, or you're going to die, or you're going to whatever. And so when we started this, and it's very, very open on our website, that we cover it all. So the only thing that you have to be is a survivor of domestic violence. So unfortunately, we just can't help everyone. So if you're on the street, but there's no affiliation with the domestic violence, we'll get you connected with other resources, but that's not our mandate. But we cover all sexual orientations, all races, all ethnicities, all religions. And then having said that, we also honestly push away any conversation about religion. So our board has to agree to, we're not talking about any type of religion. I might have a certain faith, you might have a certain faith, but unless the survivor is asking for spiritual advice, then we're not going there. We're here to provide service, not to provide or, proselytize any type of religion. And then the other part, I think it's important, that it happens across these spectrums. So, we might look at LGBTQ folks and say, oh my God, they're the true love because they've sacrificed everything to, go ahead and, express their love to one another. But it happens, domestic violence happens in that. We might look at a certain ethnicity and say, oh my God, they're so loving and affectionate and kind to one another. But then domestic violence happens in their culture all the time. We might look at a man or a female or transgender or whatnot, and it's no, it happens all across the spectrum, no matter what. And I think that's a huge platform that I always talk about, because nobody's immune to this. Nobody's immune to domestic violence at all.
Absolutely. And I also want to talk a little bit about, do you guys have any upcoming events that are currently in the works? And what does the remainder of this year and into early next year, what can we expect from On the Wings of Angels as you all continue to be out there and to be active and play a huge part in making a difference for so many lives?
Thank you for asking that. We have some exciting events planned. So in June, I'll be speaking at the I Care Barbecue June 6th. I Care of Michigan is doing this fundraising event. And because we're so partnered with them, where they have helped our clients and vice versa, they've asked me to speak. So I will be giving a little bit of my story at their event. So please come enjoy some good barbecue. I can send you the information for that. July, Blind Owl in New Baltimore is doing a huge fundraiser for us. So they're closing the restaurant down, and then they're auctioning off a bike, a $400 bike that was given to them to auction for any charity. So they're doing a big raffle for that. All proceeds from the dinner for that will go to On the Wings of Angels. So once I get the information for that, I'll pass it on to you, because we don't have those details squared away. We want to do something every month, something local. And so again, if you're listening to this and you're a restaurant, so for example, our local Big B did this wonderful thing where one day all the percentage of the proceeds all went to On the Wings of Angels. For a coffee shop, we raised a lot of money that day because the community really came out to support, and every cup or muffin or whatever sold went to, a portion of it went to us. So if you're listening to this and you have a business and you want to talk to us about furthering this mission, every dollar counts. So if you want to do a portion of your proceeds that month, Fogo de Chao did something very interesting. Fogo de Chão, did something very interesting. They put our banner and a table so people could fill out information and put their business cards in. And then Fogo gave them a free lunch. They picked a random winner once a month or once a week. So anything like that, if the community wants to jump in, please do. So that's June, July, August and September. We don't have anything yet, but I'm sure we will. And then in October, mark your calendars, October 3rd, and maybe Tyler, you can drive in. We have a Top Golf event. So Top Golf gives amazing, wonderful things to nonprofits. They're a huge nonprofit partner locally. So we're going to have a DJ. We get the top floor terrace. It's gorgeous up there. We'll have a DJ dancing. We'll have as many bays as we need. There will be a tournament. So if you would like to sponsor or you would like to attend, look out for that date as well. So.
Absolutely. I think I am already marking in my calendar.
Yes.
We'll talk more off the air because
Yes.
I would love to collaborate with you all on some events and even be able to be in attendance, cover those events, and continue to spread the word about everything that you all are doing. I also am super excited because I know that there is a book on its way to my house.
Yes.
So I want to talk a little bit about your book, The Lotus, How I Beat the Patriarchy, and tell us where can we get this book?
Yes. So I self-published my book because I didn't want an editor or someone to say, you can't say this. So I put a disclaimer in the front of the book and at the end of the book. My attorneys had me do that, so that we couldn't, we weren't going to get sued for defamation of character or anything like that. And I explained that the stories in the book, the autobiography, is from my perspective, and I think it's important that I say that because, we changed the names of all my family members in the book. And I asked permission for those friends and family that I spoke about specifically in the book, if I could use their specific names. And then the ones that didn't allow me to, we changed their names. But you can find it on Amazon, and it's a tough read. So I will tell you that even me going back and reading my book, like if I need to copy and paste certain parts of it to send someone or to post online or for a marketing piece, it's a hard read because I literally poured out my heart and soul into explaining how in detail this abuse. And I think it's important in the sense that other survivors see themselves in it. But I always, put a, sort of like a warning that, like a trigger warning that you may be triggered by it. Because even I, still find myself, it's hard. It's just a hard read. But having said that, I hope people read it. I hope people see that there's a way out. And at the end of the book, I do my 10 steps. Like this is how I got out. And I go through things like, the initial thing is denial, right? You're going to deny that you're even in a situation like this. You got to go find your people, like find who's going to help you get out. So I go through like the steps and the journey of how I got from this terrible, horrific situation, married the love of my life, started a family of our own, paid off, tons of debt. So I'm going to share something on this platform that you get exclusively because I haven't shared this yet. And I want to share it. I don't know exactly how I'm going to share it, but it's a very beautiful thing. So in the book, I talk about how I left with $100,000 of debt. So financial abuse is also a thing. So they put $100,000 of debt in my name. So when I leave, I'm like looking at my credit report, I'm at a 530 credit score with $100,000 of debt. So we talked to attorneys. I took that down to 50,000. So we took it down to 50. I had friends that let me use their money and then I would pay them off, but I would do a chunk of money to each creditor, right? So that's 50. Then my family called, like whining about a tax bill. That was 3,000. So then I paid 3,000. Then they called whining about another bill. That was 1,000. That was 54,000. We made $18,000 at the gala net profit. We made 36,000 with a grant. It's called 100 Businesses Who Care. It's a local grant. One of our board members, for the first time ever, told her story of surviving to this 100 Businesses Who Care. There's 72 of them in that 100 Businesses Who Care local group. That equals 36. 36 plus 18 is 54. So I paid $54,000 12 years ago of my own debt. And then through On the Wings of Angels, we collected $54,000 to now help survivors in our community. And I just find that like, you can't make that up like that the numbers coinciding like that is fascinating to me. So.
Wow. Wow. I'm speechless.
Right. I mean, I just can't get over it. I keep thinking about like that is such a divine thing that happened. And then it's so as a survivor, please, if you're hearing this, know that success is on the other side. Your abuser who tells you that this is not possible without them, it is. You know, you have a destiny to fulfill, and it's time for you to fulfill it.
Absolutely. And like we said before, living authentically yourself and being yourself and manifesting your dreams and everything and just having it come to fruition. Where can people find you all on social media if they haven't already? And any other information or I call them drops of gems. So when we have guests on, we're always talking and being so inspirational. Any drops of gems, words of wisdom, and of course, where everyone can find you on social media as well.
Absolutely. I appreciate the question. The website is onthewings.org. And if you're a volunteer or otwoa.org, either one will take you to the site. And then if you are a volunteer or a donor and you want to fill out our survey on our website, please feel free to do so. I read all the surveys. And if you have a survivor that you're trying to serve, or if you are a survivor listening, there is a survey on the website specifically for you as well. It goes through a list of questions. What are your needs? What are your priorities? What are your urgent needs? So that's one way. On Instagram, it's On the Wings of Angels Nonprofit. On LinkedIn, it's me, my name, JoJo Dries. And on Facebook, it's On the Wings of Angels. Now, there's like a dog rescue and a couple other ones that go by On the Wings of Angels. So make sure you find us. We're the Domestic Abuse Survivor Network. And then as far as gems or drops of wisdom, I would like to leave people with a couple of things. First, it can happen to anyone. So please don't feel guilty if you find yourself in this situation, no matter what your economic status, what your gender, any of that. Please know that this can happen to anybody, and it's happened to many of us. Number two, I know it's easy to say and hard to hear and hard to believe. In fact, many survivors say, I'm not going to believe it till you actually help me. Like, I'm glad you're there, but you're not alone. We are here, and there are other nonprofits out there for you, so you're not alone. Number three, I'm going to reiterate about the community. Please look out for each other. Ask around, ask people, make sure they're truly okay. And number four, we're all here for a purpose. I've clearly found mine. This is my purpose. I love serving others and making a better world. And we need you. So please find your purpose, because the world needs you, and we're better together. So thank you, Ty. I really did, Tyler. This was like unbelievable. I really appreciate this interview.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for sharing your story and helping me share my story as well. I've made it through the interview without crying. I'm a Cancer. We're very sensitive people.
So, oh, you're a Cancer? My husband's a Cancer. So I'm a Taurus. So Taurus, Cancer. No wonder we get along so well. We're great. Like, we're going to be besties for real.
Yes, I am definitely looking forward to all of the upcoming events. I am going to it's on my to-do list. I will be making it back to Michigan for hopefully at least one or some of these events. And then, of course, I can't wrap up the interview without sharing your title. We were talking about this right before we went on, and I just want to say, JoJo Dries, thank you so much. The Chief Angel Officer of On the Wings of Angels. I love the title.
Yes, thank you. That was given to me by Susie from Walsh, and she was like, you're the angel, like you're being, and by the way, On the Wings of Angels was the title because we all have heard of people in the media or our own friends and family that have died due to abuse. And so we're doing this on their wings. So that's why we started with On the Wings of Angels, because we're doing it on their wings. So.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much again. And we'll be sure to put all of your social media information for On the Wings of Angels in the description, in the captions, in the comments. I'm looking forward to having you on again soon. And I also look forward to attending some of your events and meeting you in person.
Wonderful. Same. Thanks for this honor. I appreciate you and all you do. Talk soon.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Have a great day.
You too. Talk soon.